In the dark corridors of an old, creaking house, a man was consumed by an unshakable obsession. He believed that he was perfectly sane, yet the depths of his mind revealed a story riddled with madness. This is the tale of his fixation on an old man whose eye, pale blue and film-covered, haunted him relentlessly. The eye was not just a feature, it was a monster sanity that filled the narrator with an irrational fear and loathing. Every night, the narrator would creep into the old man's room, driven by a compulsive need to observe him as he slept. The old man, unaware of the lurking presence, continued to dream peacefully, while the narrator felt the thrill of terror coursing through his veins. Each time he entered the room, he would be greeted by the same scene: the old man, frail and innocent, lying there, oblivious to the danger that surrounded him. But it was that cursed eye that drew the narrator closer, pushing him deeper into the abyss of his own insanity. As the nights passed, the narrator became increasingly tormented. He spoke to himself, convincing himself of his own sanity, yet the whispers of his conscience became louder. "I must rid myself of this eye," he declared one night. The thought consumed him, an unyielding force that clouded his reason. On the eighth night, the tension reached its peak. He crept into the room with a newfound determination. The moonlight flooded through the window, casting eerie shadows on the floor. He moved silently, careful not to awaken the old man, whose heart beat steadily in the silence. But then, it happened. The old man stirred. His eye, the one that had driven the narrator to madness, opened slowly, glimmering with fear and confusion. In that moment, the narrator felt a surge of adrenaline, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. It was as if the universe had conspired to push him to the brink. As he gazed at the eye, he realized it was not just a part of the old man, it was a manifestation of his own guilt and paranoia. Driven by an overwhelming desire to end his torment, the narrator lunged forward, determined to silence the source of his anguish once and for all. He pounced on the old man, his heart racing, drowning out the sound of the old man's pleas. In a frenzy of desperation, he covered the old man's mouth and, with a powerful grip, suffocated him. The old man's body went limp, and the narrator was momentarily stunned by the finality of his actions. Yet, as the adrenaline faded, a new terror gripped him. The once silent house was filled with an unbearable silence, and he could hear the heartbeat of the old man echoing in his mind. It was as if the very walls were alive, pulsating with the rhythm of a heart that would not cease. Panicking, he dragged the old man's body and hid it beneath the floorboards, convincing himself that he had finally escaped the nightmare of the eye. In the aftermath of his gruesome act, the narrator felt a fleeting sense of relief. He had rid himself of the old man and his eye, believing that he could now live in peace. But peace eluded him. The weight of his crime loomed over him like a dark cloud. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo the heartbeat of the dead man, growing louder and more insistent with every passing moment. When the police arrived, summoned by the neighbors who had heard a commotion, the narrator put on a Section 8 of calm. He greeted them with a smile, his heart racing, but he was determined to act as if nothing was amiss. He even led the officers around the house, pointing out the mundane details of his life, masking the horror beneath the floorboards. The officers, initially charmed by his demeanor, began to grow suspicious. As they conversed, the narrator's mind raced, desperate to keep the facade intact. But the heartbeat grew louder, drowning out his thoughts. It was as if the very floorboards were alive, betraying him. He felt the urge to confess, the guilt gnawing at his insides. The heartbeat became a cacophony, filling the room with its oppressive rhythm. Unable to bear it any longer, the narrator suddenly burst out, "It's the old man. I killed him. His eye drove me to madness." The words spilled out in a rush, a torrent of panic and regret. The police officers stood in shock as he revealed the truth, his mind unraveling before their eyes. The heartbeat that had haunted him for so long now became a symbol of his own guilt and insanity. The old man's eye, the source of his torment, was gone forever, yet the guilt remained. The narrator had become a prisoner of his own mind, trapped in a cycle of madness. As the officers took him away, the house stood silent once more, the echoes of the past lingering in the shadows. The tale of the telltale heart became a chilling reminder of how obsession can lead to one's own destruction, a haunting narrative of a man lost in the labyrinth of his own making. In the end, the narrator was left with nothing but his guilt, a heavy burden that no amount of denial could lift. The old man was gone, but the echo of his heartbeat would forever resonate in the depths of the narrator's mind, a reminder of the fine line between sanity and madness. The story closes with the chilling realization that true horror lies not in the act of murder but in the consequences that follow, where one's own mind can become the darkest prison of all.